Come on in and meet the flow.
They're whistling for some reason. Had no clothes.
Higher.
Liar.
Take it away.
Not too much light today.
Last talk we left at the point of Milarepa's search. And sense of loneliness. And beyond that, the nature of search become more realistic one. That Milarepa finds personal link or personal discovery of this particular goal, that he had discovered several teachers as well as Marpoi. Before he met Marpoi, he searched for other teachers, and thinking that these people are going to be the ultimate answer to his search. And each time when he tried to relate with them, something is not quite right, because the sense of fascination is too extraordinary. And also meeting a proclaimed teacher creates tremendous expectations. That, for instance, he met a teacher of Mahāti who promised him that if he practiced starting meditating in the evening, he will attain enlightenment in the morning. If you're practicing in the morning, he will attain enlightenment in the evening. That all kinds of promises were given, and the techniques that was taught were very excitable. And still it seems to be that Milarepa's search and his journey hasn't completely fulfilled in terms of discovering a real person who can communicate with him, so that his journey went on. And there are a lot of cases that teachers admitted that since there's nothing wrong with my teaching, and I'm as a teacher, there must be something wrong with you. So therefore you must go and search for somebody else. And Milarepa continued his journey, which is an interesting psychological point in terms of our own practices, that we meet a certain person who seems to answer all our questions at the beginning. We tend to become extraordinarily exciting to come across with such possibilities, such experiences, and we plunge ourselves into it. And the messages that what we get seems to become also profound, seemingly profound and exciting. But as we begin to commit ourselves into such or give an name to such fascination, that our own fascination begin to haunt us back constantly, so that we find unable to relate with the teaching or the teacher that we think the best one that we found. That seems to be the problem, is that our own fascination bouncing back on us. In the final discovery of Milarepa's Guru Marpoi, that he heard all kinds of stories of Marpoi as being a great teacher and possessed a lot of wealth, spiritual wealth, accomplished guru, and he was searching for such a person, and he came across at a farm close to Marpoi's home, and he asked these people who are sowing spring seeds for the crops, and he met this farmer who was plowing, and asked whether he, since he's a local person, whether he knew the great Marpoi. And I'm sure if you read the story book Life of Milarepa, you probably have read it. And the farmer said, "I can tell you, I know this person, but before I tell you who this person is, you must work for me in terms of payment, that you should pay for the information, that instead you should work, and then I'll tell you if you work hard, and just to lead the oxen several zigzag journeys on the field. And having done that, then they stopped for beer, and they rested. Farmer and the guy who owns the farm and his servants stopped, and they were given refreshments. And at that point, that Milarepы began to recognize or realize this farmer is the Marpoi. So we could see in some sense that in the beginning, that introduction is very gentle in many ways, and it is not connected with fascination or expectation. In other words, the Marpoi's approach was not playing on the Milarepa's weakness of his fascination is there already. So instead of creating a very awe-inspiring situation, just meet this person very casually, and he has a higher expectation of meeting the real Marpoi, but instead he had to lower down his speed of fascination to realize this person is the Marpoi that he was looking for. Almost to the level of disappointment. And it seems there's something very human about the whole thing, and very accurate about the whole thing, is that the student who feels alone, lonely, and unable to find substitute parents should also meet with a further disappointment, rather than immediately presenting substitute parents as a charitable act. So that kind of charitable would be idiot compassion. That there should be still, since fascination and the loneliness and the wanting to fulfill your desires is so intense, therefore there should be some way of still less intensifying the fascination greatly. There's one problem is also that Marpoi's home is, from Milarepa's expectation, is the house of a god. Whenever you go in there, you have expected hospitality and the kindness and gentleness and everything. You can receive teaching freely, because that the object of working with a student is a compassionate act. Therefore, this should not cost anything, food or shelter, anything. All things should be free. Like the attitude of that you have trying to relate, Milarepa trying to relate with the Marpoi. Being with him is almost political asylum. That you run away from the enemies who are chasing behind you, that hopefully the friends who is on your side will open the door and hide you behind the cupboard in case the enemies comes. And some kind of expectation of act of charity still involved. Still, the real meaning of disappointment haven't come clear in the Milarepa's situation. And we could apply to our own experience as well from that point of view, that everything should be highly hospitable, highly kind, and highly automatic, that even the student doesn't have to do anything, everything is programmed for the student. that you just sit and be there, eat what is given, and sleep when the time comes, and get up when the situation demands your discipline. So instead, that Milarepa found that he had to pay for Marpa to receive instructions in physical gifts, as it is referred as abhisheka or initiation fee. Marpa says that you could work for me. I will provide free food and free lodging, and you could receive teaching from somewhere else, or else you have to find your own lodging and food and receive teaching from me. I can't provide both physical security as well as spiritual security at the same time. And that's kind of a real human being's approach, opposed to adopting pet animals who does not have intelligence as to work for itself, and you just adopt them as your pet animal. So becoming someone's disciple from that point of view is not quite the same as someone adopting you as a pet animal. And it is also respecting human quality, that human dignity, that human beings are able to use their brain and able to look after themselves, much more so than physical level, and spiritually they could do that as well. And the experience of Milarepa becomes more and more difficult, more than expected. And several attempts were made to try to get into a teaching situation, trying to join the teaching students crowd, and each time Milarepa was kicked out because he didn't have anything to offer. Originally, probably Milarepa thought that he could just move into Marpa's house and hang out there and eat the food and share the shelter and also receive the teaching. And obviously that turned out to be a not practical thing to do. That would increase the karmic debts of physical debts of expense and the cost of living, as well as spiritual debts of that claustrophobic, you're creating claustrophobic situation of demanding every inch of space that Marpa has, that you are sucking it out as a hunger ghost kind of attitude. Obviously Milarepa was very suffocated, and he feels extremely poor, that he would like to work with somebody who could really feed him spiritually, physically. Obviously that would have been his ideal dream of a bodhisattva or a good person, and he would have enjoyed doing that, becoming part of Marpa's household. But that is in fact we are indebting ourselves, or he's indebting ourselves more than he should be, that he has no exchange of anything. And also at the same time that he is unable to, if that the situation was created that way, he will be unable to offer his rugged ego or expose himself to Marpa, because he will be constantly obeying the orders and living there, and the life situation is very snug, relatively speaking. that seemed to be one of the starting point of Milarepa's discovery of that even you associate yourself with a great teacher and the lineage, you are still alone, a lonely person. And beyond that, there was not only that, that's not the only thing, that he could move out and he could have his own apartment or place to live and receive teaching, pay for the teaching fee. I mean, which a lot of people in our situation, the 20th century, is quite easily that one can do it. That you take part-time job, you move into an apartment, and you have tried to develop clean-cut relationship with your teacher, and even doesn't drink a cup of tea, and doesn't offend anybody in his household. You just come and pay for your tuition as teaching, for receiving teaching, and one could do that. But that seemed to be also at the same time working for further security of some kind. Still, you will have to keep your record clear and clean in order to learn further. And you're trying to develop great politician from that sense. And somehow that isn't not only enough. There's more demand. Quite different from if you're threatened in your position in office. You just stop criticizing your boss or your fellow workers. You just do the job and you go back home and come the next day. And that seemed to be a different approach in this case than that. So Marpoi, in this case, asks Milarepa as initiation fee to build several constructions for him. He designed everything, and Milarepa builds, and each time the construction is almost completed, that Marpoi would say, I have no intention of building such a place. It was you made it up yourself, and you wasting my time, spoiling my landscape and my property. Or else that some certain times Marpoi would say that I don't remember giving you such order, I must be drunk at the time. And all kinds of excuses were given, but still it's quite clear that it is intentional on Marpoi's part. Not in terms of just playing ego games of a student alone, but it's something much more subtle than that. It's kind of operation that begins to take place. Physical operation that takes place. Ego operation that takes place. Finally, when the fifth tower has been built, which is 9 stories high, and it consists of small cells which were used as shrines and sitting places, and there's a lookout place on the top in which you could go out and walk around the town, which still, such building still does exist in Tibet. A lot of students go and visit this place. And that was the final achievement. Finally, that both Marpoi and Milarepa agreed that there was intentional thing in their project. And it seemed to be extremely successful as far as Milarepa is concerned, that he was finally doing something right. And they had a mutual project successfully achieved. And then thinking that by now, since I did these things, maybe I would be allowed to accept teaching. And there's some kind of letdown in his attitude that he is still hungry. And that even had to be cut through, so he was finally kicked out again. And Marpoi's wife lends Milarepa a certain initiation fee as a gift, and Marpoi, immediately recognizing these merchandise, so to speak, and kicks him out with a great rage. And as we know, Milarepa is a very patient person and a very intense person, very serious person, and no sense of humor at the time, and very honest and earnest, sincere person. That he, whatever happens costing his life or whatever, that he would like to receive teachings. That his ambition becomes too extraordinarily intense. That seems to be the problem. And that is to say that one has to also realize the one's attitude of psychological materialism and spiritual materialism. Both of them have to be cut through. If you have too much desire to gain a higher goal, still by using your own authority as the ego, you're standing on the ego's territory and still trying to become a better person, and you still have that tendency of enlightening the ego is the same as egomaniac or egohood. So enlightening the ego is that ego becomes indestructible. So with spiritual materialism, so one has to let go of some, sooner or later, this desire to become a better person from the ego's point of view, constantly. So those examples of Milarepa's life connected with the Marpoi is the destruction of spiritual and psychological materialism. That there is nothing you can get if you, as long as you're still wanted to glorify your existence as an ego possessed person. That doesn't mean to say that before a person begins the spiritual course, a person has to become egoless. But a person has to be aware of there's such situation as egomaniac, egohood, spiritual inclined. The spiritual materialism is very prominent in a person's search at the beginning. So a person should be aware of that situation, that possibilities, putting into the picture of such possibilities, that spiritual materialism is deathly as much as destroying the whole universe. Since you are the creator of the universe as far as we are concerned, individually, as our reference point stands. So, Marpoi's kind gesture, seemingly cruel, one is a way of cutting through spiritual materialism and psychological materialism. And until that Milarepa gives up any kind of hopelessness that he cannot achieve a highest state of enlightenment in this life by himself. He cannot achieve enlightenment. He had to be forgotten or give up hope. Until that, you can't do anything at all. And it's seen in the case of the other teachers that Milarepa had met, were insensitive to Milarepa's style and his willful, strong, sincere mentality. Hasn't been realized since there's no relationship with the Milarepa and other teachers. In the case of Marpoi, that is somewhat that right chemistry that met together and work things together that way. So I think that at the beginning, not only disappointment getting into the spirituality, like realizing Marpoi was just a mere farmer, then a holy man, came from India to Tibet. He does his regular job, cultivating his field, and going up to the mountains and take care of the dairy farm, and taking care of the payments to the servants, running household details, as well as teaching at the same time. So the ordinariness of Marpoi made starting point that he wasn't seemingly highly mystical, enlightened, holy man, as one would expect. That he was this very ordinary person, very simple and very down-to-earth person, who cares a great deal about his wealth and his initiation fees, and he cares about his farm, he cares about his animals and his family. And such disappointment is a starting point, a merely starting point. Having disappointed already at the starting point, then you begin to give in to that and begin to accept the whole thing and say that, okay, even this is, I'm willing to accept these things. And that's not enough even. And beyond it, there's a really subtle disappointment, which is almost in the form of punishment of existing, maintaining your ego. More stronghold on the ego, that much operation is needed. So in the case of Milarepa, that he was a very extreme person, the time that he has to have more chance to realize and give in his wishful thinking and hopeful thinking, which plays a very important part. So that we could say at this point that necessity to have a disappointment at the beginning, discovering the spiritual journey at the beginning, a disappointment to that. And after that, also one have destroyed the philosophical adjustment you might make. If you find your teacher, spiritual friend, ordinary person, you will say, because he's so extraordinary, therefore he's ordinary. And I'm willing to accept anything that happens, and we tend to develop certain philosophical attitude. We find ourselves very adaptable to that. And then we will say that having adapted myself in that situation, now I'm going to be saved. And anything I do beyond that level, that I have already gone through that, so therefore I could receive gifts without exchanging with anything, without giving anything in my part. So you need also a second kind of disappointment in the form of execution, almost so to speak, that stripping out the skin of ego, tearing out the bone structures, and unmasking everything that we try to hide behind our philosophy that we have developed at the time. And such thing becomes extremely important, and that's the experience Milarepa had, which could be also applicable to our life situation. That entering into spirituality needs unmasking the mask, and the pride that we developed having unmasked becomes also another mask, and I had to unmask that as well. So we could have a discussion on that.
Doesn't the awareness of the process make it more difficult? For example, you get to a place, let's say, where you expect anything from your teacher, and then you get to a place where all of a sudden nothing you do is right, everything is clumsy, turned off, cold. It doesn't diminish your hope though, because somewhere in there you know that that's part of the process, so you don't give up, you don't let go of it. You know that the rejection, the seeming hopelessness of the situation is part of the whole process, so you can't let go of the fact that eventually, after much time goes by of this rejection, that there'll be some sort of a change. Doesn't it make it more difficult to let go of it now that we know?
Well, I mean, if the whole process are purely repetition of the same thing again and again, that would become very difficult to become in a hopeless state. Whereas this kind of hopeless process has a much more stronger situation than that, which is that Milarepa found that Marpai's approach to him was unexpected ones each time. So you develop certain logical patterns, ideas of the behavior of your teacher, very predictable, even in very predictable, in the sense of unpredictably. but you have some pattern, an idea. And as you develop, as you make that as a safe ground, as you go along. And at some point, even unpredictability becomes more predictable. So something turns around constantly, like having built the fifth castle, Mиларепы thought now, I have some chance. But still it turned out to be something quite different. So it's a question of there's a constant surprise.
Regarding Mиларепы being so disappointed when he arrived at his new teachers at Marpой's, it seemed to me that his greatest disappointment was that things didn't work out as he thought they would. When he came there, he would have this, that, and every comfort, and the assistance for studying and learning. He had predetermined what would happen. It's the most foolish thing that I've found for me to do, because it's far different when you're accepting certain conditions from your teacher, and he sets it. He wasn't going to furnish his lodging or food or whatever, but Mиларепы had thought that all of that goes in the package like. And so he had great disappointments. Now, when Marpoj told him he is on his own as far as getting his lodging and so forth, he threw his weakness back to him to turn around and make something of it and improve himself as he wished. And it seemed to me, it's a great disappointment to receive that. I can admit that too, personally. And only when he saw that, like a student that wants a quiet spot to study, not realizing that if he sits down and doesn't listen to the other noises around him, it will be very quiet. He could study in a very noisy place with many people around him, instead of searching for a quiet little place where he could do his studying. Now, when he saw that point, what happened? This tower with the little cell rooms and the winding staircase and so forth developed. And that's when he was ready for that. He wasn't ready for that before, because he was making the plan that Marpoj was supposed to make for him, as I see it.
You see, there's something more than that, even after that. There's, as long as you think that you have prepared for something, even for yourself, that even that logic turns into upside down. Because still there's a you who's scheming the whole thing, even in the name of egolessness. And still, you are on the same thing.
That's my understanding.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
To say this change of attitude towards one's guru, where even your acceptance of his ordinariness has to be given weight. That sounds like the start of compassion. Maybe on the student's part. I mean, if you can relate to his guru that way, that would also be his way of opening to others.
I think so. It's a question of that there's some subtle aggression. Student who develops certain subtle aggression
towards the Guru.
Towards himself and therefore to the Guru. It's that his inadequacy is so overwhelmingly true, and therefore that somebody who sees that and begin to grin at you is extremely annoying. And as much as your own thing. So there's that kind of annoyance, and very much so to the fact that somebody's minding your business more than you wanted, and you feel extremely indignant about the whole thing. And as long as that thing goes on, then you're banging your own head on the wall. And war is not hitting you, but you're hitting the wall. But you can still get angry at the wall.
How could Milarepa know that when he met Marpa, that was when his shopping trip came to an end?
Well, you see, that's a very good question, actually. That's a very important question. I'm glad you asked that. He didn't exactly know, but he heard a description of Marpa. He was highly inspired, very inspired, and he was all prepared for it. But when he came to meet him, he was just involved in another situation, like he would be running out of gas, and he stopped in the gas station and asked the gas tender, "Where's the Guru?" And it's incidental kind of thing. It's not well planned. So Milarepa didn't have a sense of entering into anything. He was thinking of he's having his casual trips, casual journey, that asking somebody where Marpa is. And then he was asked to work, he did, and then he was offered beer, and then he was taken into the house, and slowly he just got into it. Until that finally he kind of refused, even if he didn't like it. So there's no sudden revelation from that point of view.
Let's say that the Guru has already disappointed your fascination desire, and then you've understood that his ordinariness is nothing special either, and you've understood that you are completely inadequate in terms of doing anything yourself, by yourself, in certain ways. And then the Guru's grinning at you, like we say. And he's not putting you down, he's just grinning. And it's kind of, you don't have any direction to go at that point.
I think you still do, because you, for one thing, you feel that you have to pull out your own resources. Even if somebody's grinning at you, you have to handle that insult by reacting some way or other, which means you have to develop something rather than purely turn into a zombie. You have to have some style, something. You have to develop some kind of guts, even at a very polite level or whatever. And you begin to pull yourself up that way.
But that's just another pose.
Yeah, still, but nevertheless, it's you begin to realize your desolation of a self-centered ego. At the same time that you feel that you have to do something with your remaining of ego, which seemed to be necessary.
Rinpoche, did you say that Marpa didn't take advantage of Milarepa's weakness? It was a gentle sort of a beginning at the start?
Yeah.
That reminds me immediately of a talk that I read that you gave on the development of ego in Boulder. And it seemed that the purpose of that talk was that there was mention in there that someone's weakness had been taken advantage of, and that this was destructive. I was wondering about the connection between that.
Well, you could say in some sense Marpa did take advantage of Milarepa's weakness, because Milarepa was very vague, and he is, so to speak, he is spaced out at the time by searching for some spiritual master, that he's dreaming about it, and the little details, the stories that the Millarepы was crossing a river before he got to the farm, and he had his wet boots put on the in the rucksack, top of his rucksack, where the manuscripts, the books were kept, and the water is dripping down into the books. And somebody reminded him that how come, for one thing, that you have disrespect to the books. You're not supposed to put shoes over books. Another thing, that the books are getting spoiled by your wet shoes, wet boots. And that gives the example that he was completely spaced out somewhat. And because of that, that he's spaced outness being constantly taken advantage of by Marpoi by luring him into the farm and making him do things and invite him to the house for the first day or two. But at the same time, that real, what you call taking disadvantage is that all kinds of promises were presented to him. A sense of the savior, companionship. That, Marpoi's approach to him is very businesslike. That, who's going to eat, who's not going to eat, who's going to pay for it. And not only that, but the teaching also costs money at the same time.
Also, a couple other questions that are sort of interconnected. One is, it seemed like in a situation where a person is terribly disappointed, feels like they, for several months have been walking through sort of a wall of fire, seemed like, that there would be a certain amount of pride developed to continue to face the pain of it. I mean, it seemed like that's what happened. A certain amount of pride does spring up. Now, the student knows that's where he's at, and also this is linked with the situation where somebody recognizes that they did have substitute parents, and the student recognizes that even realizing that is sort of clinging to the concept of father and mother, that's still too much too, but the student knows where he's at in that regard. I guess that's not a question. But I mean, the student's aware of where he's at. I wonder what happened there.
I don't think they're particularly aware of their journey panoramically, but they have some corners of a given situation are either satisfied or not satisfied, and little areas to watch. And the limitation of students' approach is based on not trusting himself, that he is at the mercy of somebody else's, that you feel belittled and stupid, that in front of such a wise person, that you feel more than stupid, and you even are not bothered to stick your neck out. And the euphemism to that is devotion, but not quite. And the devotion doesn't mean to say that you have to keep your stupidity and regard that as a humble person. That is a humble gesture. And the convention idea for developing devotion is that remain humble and stupid, so you don't even have the intelligence to ask questions. Whatever be told to you should be accepted. And that doesn't seem to be quite true.
What are some of the other ways of becoming spaced out besides taking drugs or living a tail of the tiger?
I think a physical situation does not mean anything very much. It's your state of mind. You have your drug all the time. Even you don't have to take physical drugs. For that matter, you are living your own trail of tiger everywhere. You have your own portable tail of the tiger wherever you go.
We were talking about how Millarepы, after the initial disappointment, then sort of got into another ego trip about recognizing the ordinariness of his guru and how far out it was he was ordinary. And it seems that this game of recognizing ego trips is something that's constantly going on. You see an ego trip, and then you get another ego trip about seeing your ego trip, and then you get another one about realizing that it was an ego trip that you saw. You made a big deal out of seeing your ego trip, and it doesn't seem there's really any way out of that. That there's that anytime you try to do something about it, it's just another ego trip.
Yeah, that's true. You see, that seems to be the starting point. Is that when you realize there's no way out, and you've given up the game, and maybe something happens after that. As long as there's any promises, that leads further ego games, further involvement. Whereas when you realize the whole thing is completely hopeless, and then you begin to change your perspective in slightly different areas.
And it's sort of like when in meditation, the idea is not to reject any thoughts or accept them. You simply do nothing about them. And that's sort of the same approach you should take to ego trips.
That might be so.
Rinpoche, wouldn't feeling that you've given up the trip, that hopelessness be an ego trip also?
It depends on how value you lay on hopelessness.
Pardon?
Depends on how much value you put on hopelessness. If it's hopelessness regarded as a valuable thing to happen, then you're still not being hopeless enough.
Doesn't knowing too much about it intellectually just help you to keep caught in this? Because no one would ordinarily place a value on hopelessness, but knowing that that's part of the cure, or part of the remedy, makes it almost impossible
I know.
have any escape at all.
Well, it seems to be this, that if you realize that your cure is uncertain, whether it is going to cure you or not.
I didn't understand.
But your medicine is uncertain, whether you're going to really cure it or whether it's just another game. So you have, since you are you feel fundamentally insecure, you begin to ask everything. Even the believing in insecurity is the basic ground to get onto, but even that attitude is to be cautionable. So I think as long as you have a sense of insecurity sufficiently, that your watcher takes care of you, your paranoid watcher takes care of you, that even the answers, even the medicine is maybe a poison. I mean that you usually get struck by unexpectedly from the back door, rather than in the conventional sense of you're going along and you're being stopped, but you're being attacked from the behind. So there's all kinds of unexpected surprises happens constantly, which would lead you to giving up hope fundamentally.
Why didn't Millarepы lose faith in Marpa through all the disappointment? Like, was there something special about Marpa?
It's no question of losing faith. I don't think he lost faith in Marpa, but he lost faith in himself. That he can't push too hard. So therefore, he's an unworthy person at the end. He still has faith in the Marpa, which is not his problem particularly. His problem is that he has too much faith in him, that he could make Marpa to give him everything what he wants.
But what is there about Marpa that gives him such faith in Marpa? I mean, does he see Marpa as being a holy man, or does he see him as just being a farmer and he doesn't know why he stays there or what?
Well, I think he began to realize there's something unusual about Marpoi, obviously. I don't know, in a sense, holy man, because of his subtleties, that he's neither guru nor father nor God, but he is everything that is unnameable. There's something there, some tremendous bank of something, richness of something, but undefinable. I mean, one thing is that Milarepa's attitude is different from the Westerners, Americans, that his mind is not taught that way to develop pigeonholing categories of people. And also social structure is very loose and very simple. So you don't have a psychiatrist those days, you don't have holy men those days particularly, just good people around you. And you don't have successful businessmen those days particularly. And the whole thing is undefined, so therefore there is a lot of advantage about that. In the case of this day, if Milarepa happens to be 20th century, it would have more problem, because the whole structure is so well defined.
Rinpoche, hello. Can you tell us what we can do with the situation in the West, especially United States, when we have the strikes against us before we start? We're licked before we start. The school systems and the parental systems and the way we're trained and the way we have succeeded to make this a country. And then it also, as it's defeating itself, this whole purpose, we are in this position. I say we, especially the younger generation. It's training of this desire to excel, and even when we are fortunate to come to you, it's still the same thing. There's these deft meanings, and we watch ourselves, and it still comes to the same thing. Now this I feel is a idea and habit that came in from the history of the country. And it's coming to a point that there has to be a slight change, more than slight. And if there's any suggestion, I'm just asking.
Well, you see, the point is that we generally say, I am sick today because of yesterday. I didn't take care for myself yesterday. But we can't just feel that we are entrapped in the past all the time. That the realization of that there is some organic change which led us into the present situation. But that isn't the only thing that we have to submit to it. We could change the present moment, present situation. That's precisely what meditation talks about, is being now, nowness, is to cut through the chain reaction of the past and to purely deal with the present situation, which becomes a stepping stone to the future. So I don't think we have to feel particularly claustrophobic about it, because we'll be led into this. But we could do something more than that. It's a question of how we relate with the present situation, what's happening, that very moment, which may be connected with the past consequences. It's like a game of chess that where you are on the board is due to the past moves. But what you're going to do from that move to the next one is up to you.
So it's the past that's the transparent thoughts, in the same way that the future would be the transparent thoughts that you were talking about.
But there's no such thing as the future yet.
Well, the anticipation.
Yeah, which is the present one. Which is the present one. Anticipation is also present thought. So the whole thing simplified into this moment.
But the past thought is a transparent thought in the present.
Well, there's no such thing as past thought either, because it was gone and dead.
But you're bringing the past with you into now.
No, I don't think so. Past died, therefore it's called the past. Otherwise it still will be present.
So is it, then what's transparent? Is it the present that's
the present transparent? That's precisely what I mean, yeah. I mean, obviously, you know.
Well, what is and what's the principle of karma? Like
Its present situation. That you are here.
But isn't
you can't be anywhere else.
But isn't whatever happens now kind of depend on what just happened?
I wouldn't say depend on, but that was a memory. Present memory. Obviously you walked from wherever you come from and you are here. And hypothetically we could say that you can't be here if you are not in where you come from. New York?
In Boston.
Boston, that's right, yeah. So Boston still does exist. Therefore you are here. But that doesn't mean to say that having come from Boston is the reason why you are here. You are here because you are here. Karmic inheritance is language of the present rather than the past. You were a dog in your previous incarnation, and you're a human being in this incarnation. You would be a jackal in the next incarnation. But it doesn't matter. It's what you are now.
Rinpoche, how does that connect up with, I think, what you said yesterday about rediscovering sort of former unpleasantness? It seemed like one's karmic function comes back, like after many years, it sort of circles back.
Yeah, it does.
It's like Steve might remember the first teacher that ever inspired him in high school. The only thing that I ever remembered from that relationship mainly was the teacher writing in their yearbook that everybody's of some good, if only to serve as a bad example. seems to circle back. What I'm saying is that the karmic function seems to have been set early.
I think that's a question of rediscovering automatically means. You are discovering your present state. Well, logically we could say that if you could rediscover something, which means that you are ignorant in the past of your